In the colonial southern Rhodesia, present-day Zimbabwe, where the air thick with tension and impending revolution, a movement was born that would reshape the destiny of a nation. It was 1963, and Ndabaningi Sithole, a charismatic Methodist minister turned nationalist firebrand, stood at the forefront of this storm. Sithole, with his eloquent speeches and unyielding vision for black majority rule, had broken away from Joshua Nkomo's Zimbabwe African People's Union, ZAPU, to found the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU. Little did he know that the seeds of his own downfall were sown in those very foundations, amid rivalries that simmered like hidden fault lines beneath the surface. Sithole was no ordinary leader. Educated in the United States, he authored books like African Nationalism, blending Christian theology with anti-colonial fervor. His arrest in 1964, alongside emerging figures like Robert Mugabe, only amplified his mythos. From behind bars, Sithole directed ZANU's operations, smuggling directives to the guerrilla wing, ZANLA, Zimbabwe African National Liberation Army. But prison walls breed paranoia and power vacuums. A less-known fact, whispered in the corridors of history, is that Sithole's time in detention led him to a controversial pivot. In a bid for release, he allegedly renounced armed struggle in 1974, testifying in court that he had abandoned violence. This act, intended to secure freedom for negotiations, instead painted him as a compromiser in the eyes of hardline fighters. It was a fatal misstep, eroding trust among the young commanders who viewed any dialogue with Ian Smith's regime as treason. Enter Rex Nhongo, the enigmatic warrior whose real name, Solomon Majuru, belied his ferocious reputation. Nhongo, a battle-hardened commander who had risen through ZANLA ranks after joining the struggle in the late 1960s, embodied the raw grit of the Bush War. Less known is his early brush with death. During the 1974 Nhari Rebellion, a mutiny within ZANLA led by Thomas Nhari and Badza, Nhongo narrowly escaped execution by the rebels who accused the high command of corruption. This rebellion, crushed brutally by ZANLA chief Josiah Tongogara, left scars and suspicions. Nhongo, as Tongogara's deputy, learned the art of survival in a world where loyalty was currency and betrayal a constant shadow. By 1975, the liberation struggle was at a crossroads. ZANU leaders, including Tongogara, were imprisoned in Zambia following the assassination of ZANU chairman Herbert Chitepo, an event shrouded in mystery. Some blame Rhodesian agents, others internal feuds. Sithole, briefly released, attempted to consolidate power under the African National Council, ANC, umbrella, uniting factions for talks with Smith. But the fighters in exile, training in Tanzanian camps like Mgagao, grew restless. They saw Sithole's negotiations as a sellout, especially after he appointed controversial figures like Noel Mukono, implicated in the Nhari Rebellion, to key positions. Funds meant for fighters' families vanished into personal pockets, and Sithole's refusal to honor the imprisoned leadership in Zambia fueled outrage. A chilling, lesser-known accusation emerged. Sithole was plotting to assassinate ZANLA's high command to eliminate rivals, a claim that sent shockwaves through the ranks. Nhongo, positioned as acting ZANLA commander with Tongogara jailed, navigated these turbulent waters with cunning. His relationship with Sithole was strained. Nhongo viewed him as detached from the front lines, more preacher than warrior. In contrast, Mugabe, ZANU's Secretary General, impressed with his intellectual rigor and unyielding commitment to armed struggle. A secretive bond tied them. Mugabe was reportedly Nhongo's nephew, a family tie kept under wraps to avoid nepotism charges, yet it forged an unbreakable alliance. As whispers of dissent echoed in Mgagao camp, Nhongo sensed the winds of change. The stage was set for a coup not with bullets, but with words that would redefine Zimbabwe's future. The Mgagao camp in Tanzania, a sprawling hub of mud huts and rifle drills under the watchful eyes of Julius Nyerere's government, became the crucible of revolution in late 1975. Here, amid the rhythmic chants of trainees and the distant roar of lions, a group of 32 Zanla commanders convened in secret. Led by figures like Zinashe Mashingura and Wilfred Mhanda, they drafted a document that would ignite the powder keg, the Mgagao Declaration. This manifesto, penned in the dead of night, was no mere complaint. It was a surgical strike against Sithole's leadership, laced with accusations that peeled back layers of betrayal. The declaration's text, rarely quoted in full, pulsed with righteous fury. It thanked allies like Tanzania and Mozambique's Frelimo, but vowed unswerving commitment to armed struggle, condemning any talks with Smith as counter-revolutionary. Sithole bore the brunt. He had misappropriated funds donated for the cause, leaving fighters' families starving while he lived comfortably. He ignored the Mbaroma massacre, where Zambian forces gunned down Zanla cadres in cold blood during the post-Jitepo crackdown, a tragedy that claimed dozens. Yet Sithole showed no remorse, violating Shona customs of honoring the dead. Most damning, he refused to recognize the elected Zanu leadership languishing in Zambian prisons and appointed rebels like Mukono to the Zimbabwe Liberation Council, ZLC, seen as aiding Smith's intelligence. The commanders demanded Sithole's ouster, proclaiming Mugabe as the outstanding executive member worthy of leading. Rex Nhongo's role in this drama was a masterclass in strategic ambiguity. As a senior signatory, his name etched among the 32, he lent military weight to the document. But when Mozambican President Samora Machel initially backed Sithole, Nhongo dissociated himself publicly to avoid alienating a key ally. This calculated retreat was a lesser-known tactic. Nhongo, ever the pragmatist, knew Machel's support was crucial for basing operations in Mozambique. Behind the scenes, however, he fanned the flames. With Tongogara imprisoned, Nhongo rallied the fighters, emphasizing Sithole's lenient approach to Smith and his moderate negotiations with Rhodesian spies. A hidden detail, Sithole's alleged collaboration extended to secret meetings with the Rhodesian Central Intelligence Organization, where he bartered for personal gain, further alienating the guerrillas who bled in the bush. The declaration's release in November 1975 sent ripples across the Liberation Front. It called for intensifying the war, demanding Chinese arms, a shipment capable of equipping 2,500 men, and training bases in Mozambique. Nhongo, alongside Comrade Solsadza, traveled to Mozambique to brief cadres and secure Frelimo's nod. This move not only isolated Sithole but paved the way for Mugabe's exile to Mozambique, where he could consolidate power away from Zambian interference. The Mgagao coup wasn't violent, but its intrigue rivaled any palace intrigue. A minister dethroned by his own warriors, with Nhongo as the shadowy architect pulling strings from the front lines. With Sithole sidelined, the path to Mugabe's ascension seemed clear, but the liberation struggle was a labyrinth of alliances and ambushes. Rex Nhongo, now the undisputed military powerhouse, emerged as the kingmaker. In early 1976, as Mugabe fled to Mozambique to evade arrest, Nhongo orchestrated the transition. A lesser-known pivot, Nhongo personally convinced Samora Machel to abandon Sithole, leveraging their shared respect for hierarchy and revealing the familial secret. Mugabe was his nephew, a bond that added personal stakes to political maneuvering. This revelation, kept from public scrutiny, ensured Machel's backing, allowing Zanla to establish bases in Mozambique and escalate the guerrilla war. The formation of the Zimbabwe People's Army, ZIPA, in 1976, uniting Zanla and Zapu's Zipra under Nhongo's nominal command, was another stroke of genius. Though short-lived due to factional tensions, ZIPA intensified operations, smuggling fighters across borders and launching daring raids. Sithole, exiled in Tanzania and later forming his own splinter Zanundonga, faded into irrelevance. His attempts to reclaim leadership through the 1976 Geneva Conference floundered. The Mgagao signatories boycotted, viewing him as a puppet. A dark, underreported fact, Sithole's ouster led to violent purges, with suspected loyalists executed in camps, a grim echo of the Nhari rebellion's brutality. By 1977, at the Kimoyo Special Congress, Mugabe was officially installed as ZANU president. Nhongo's endorsement was pivotal. As ZANLA Supremo, he commanded loyalty from thousands of fighters. He briefed delegates on the Chinese arms influx and Mozambique support, framing Mugabe as the intellectual force to complement military might. This alliance propelled ZANU-PF, the Patriotic Front merger, toward victory in the 1980 elections, but it came at a cost. Nhongo's kingmaking extended post-independence. As army chief, he shielded Mugabe during the Gukurahundi massacres, a chapter of horror where 20,000 Ndebele civilians perished. Yet, Nhongo's legacy is laced with irony. The man who installed Mugabe met a mysterious end in 2011, dying in a suspicious farm fire amid rumors of plots against his uncle-turned-tyrant. Sithole, dying in exile in 2000, remains a forgotten intellectual, his contributions eclipsed by the victor's narrative. The Mgagao saga reminds us, revolutions devour their children, and in Zimbabwe's story, ambition's shadows linger long after the guns fall silent.